What happened, Coach?
You got beamed by a fastball. How many fingers am I holding up?
25?
25? Uh-oh.
25? Did you know you can save up to 25% off grocery store prices at BJ's Wholesale Club?
Good call, Ump. I'll save a ton on my Memorial Day cookout.
BJ's deals on patio furniture are a home run, too.
On your feet, son. Do you know where you are?
I'm at BJ's. Look at all the happy shoppers.
Save in-club or shop on BJ's.com and pick up in-club or curbside. BJ's. Absurdly simple savings.
This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gould.
Welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about their most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. I am your host, Steve Gould, like the gentleman said. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Thank you for coming back. If you're a serial listener, I always appreciate that. And if you just found the show, thank you for taking a chance and clicking on it. I think you're going to like it. I interview like the intro said, I interview police officers, the men and women, about their most intense and honest. They're honest and unedited when they tell these stories, and that was the whole point of the podcast. I asked 5 questions. We talk about whatever comes up, but I always try to ask the 5 questions. The first call that gave you an adrenaline dump, got your heart going, a strange or bizarre thing, the most intense or terrifying call, a heartwarming encounter, if they've got one, and also advice to new candidates, which is a real popular one. So that's kind of how the show is laid out. I really appreciate all the recent rating and reviewing going on in Apple Podcasts. We're up to 900 and I think 40-something 5-star reviews, which is amazing. I want to get up to 1,000, so I'm not embarrassed anymore. 1K is really where I need to be with the big boys. So if you guys can do that, I'd love it. The show is brought to you, as always, by Patreon supporters. If you want to help keep the lights on and you really love the show, you've heard a bunch of episodes and you want to do something for it, the Patreon is the place to go to do that. There's a patrolman, there's a sergeant rank. They both come with 2 different things, little benefits to them. There's like a Facebook page that only you'll have access to, or it's a Patreon page, but it's like set up like Facebook. You get what I'm saying. You'll get early access to interviews and a bunch of other stuff. Total access to me. You can ask questions that I'll ask on the air, things like that. So that's been doing really well, and it's really great. And if you can't afford it, don't worry about it. The show's going to remain free always, so as many people can hear it as possible. But if you really love it, that's the place to show your appreciation for. So today, I'm excited about our guests. I've been trying to get her for a while, for a minute. I wrote her a message, I think on Twitter, which I never use, and I think she said she never saw it, and it was kind of like just she popped up in my feed. She's done some amazing things. She speaks nationally and internationally. Just seemed like she'd be a great guest. I imagine she got a lot of messages, so I kind of ignored it. And then recently I was like, she popped up again, and I go, I'm going to try again. So I just wrote to her, help a brother out, and she wrote back, of course I'll come on. I missed the first message. So I'm super excited to have her. She's done some incredible things in her life so far, and I'm sure there's many more to come. Because of that, I'm just going to read her intro because that's the best way to do it without botching it. So Officer Ann Carrizales, Ann began her career in the military with the United States Marine Corps in 1991. In 97, Ann made history as she became the first female to represent the United States Marine Corps in amateur boxing. In 99, she became the U.S. Women's National Champion in her weight division and was ranked number 1 in the country, number 2 in the world, if you can believe that. In 2010, Ann joined the Stafford Police Department, working special assignments such as FTO, a rape aggression defensive instructor, that's a RAD instructor, police trainer, worked as a crisis negotiator for the SWAT team, and while working at Stafford in 2013, she was involved in an officer-involved shooting where she was struck in the face and the chest, and continued to push on, showed some serious perseverance there. We'll hear about that, which is incredible, and has received the LE Purple Heart, the Congressional Badge of Bravery, the IAWP Medal of Valor, and many more awards for her heroic acts. She's currently a reserve or part-time officer at the Meadows Police Department, training in gang awareness, opiate addiction, and sex trafficking. And I have to mention also she is a wife and a mother. She is currently traveling the country presenting the Fight After the Fight series, and super honored to have her. So without further ado, let me bring on Ann. And welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm so happy to have you on the show after all those times you ignored me on Twitter.
Thank you. I have really, if I gave myself a life report card, my social media grade would be kind of low. I have to do better there, but I got time for that. So I apologize. I missed it. I missed several messages on there. You're not the only one. And I have to just get better at checking the inbox there. But yeah, I'm glad we were able to make it happen.
Me too. I'm just teasing. Twitter is the absolute worst. It's a cesspool. I have a Twitter for the podcast, and it's gotten me like 0 views, 0 fans. It just everything the way Twitter is designed, unless you have like a serious following, it's not even worth doing. But joking, of course. And you've had an incredible career. I mean, you've done some really cool things. Where I have to ask you, when growing up, have you always been kind of a rough and tumble woman? Where have you always been kind of a tomboy?
Oh yes. That comes way from the very beginning. I've always been rough. I have a big brother. I have a baby brother too, but I have a big brother that was instrumental in molding me that way. My dad, I'm the daughter of an old warfighter, a U.S. Army veteran, did a tour in Vietnam, and while he was in the Army, got out, joined the Marine Corps. I like to say he got smart and joined the Marine Corps. and my big brother ultimately joined the Army as well. But they were just, they didn't let me be soft. They taught me to be tough. They taught me to navigate through things. My older cousins, who were more like brothers to me, I was always playing tackle football and wrestling and doing all the rough stuff. And I just loved it. I've always loved it. I'm very much a woman. I love being a woman, but I just love to do all the tough shit too. So
yeah, it's great. I love it. Yeah. It's so cool. So let me ask you, we were talking about briefly, Marine Corps boot camp, police academy, which one was worse? Although I know you probably enjoyed both of them in a way.
Well, nothing tops Marine Corps boot camp in my book. You could never change my mind there. Marine Corps boot camp is a level of transformation personally and physically, professionally. I mean, just you name it. That is in my opinion unrivaled. But I also have a unique situation where I didn't actually go through a civilian police academy.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Correct. I had so many years of experience under my belt in law enforcement through the military that living in the state of Texas allowed me to do what is called a basic peace officer basic supplemental peace officer course. I could do that online. I did it online. That with my experience, I had to provide all this documentation, but the state will grant me permission to challenge the state exam. So that's what I did. I challenged the state exam, thinking, you know what, I could do that, and not really realizing how much I was biting off there. There was a time there where I thought, I might have bitten off a little more than I could chew. But I did that. I did the supplemental peace officer course, and I knocked that out really quick. And then I just studied my little behind off and challenged the state exam. And that's how I became licensed in the state of Texas. It wasn't easy, but it was certainly I just love the challenge of it. So, it was certainly worth it to go that route. And if I had the opportunity to do it, I was going to try, and I did. So
that's awesome. I love that about Texas. There's more than one way to skin a cat. In the Northeast, you have all these little states, and they're horribly married to their police academies. So you can, and even some cities won't accept other cities, and they make you go through again. And really, if you've done the job like you had, and you can pass the test, you already have the essence of being a police officer.
Policing, correct.
Isn't it beneficial to everybody to not make barriers to get people on if you have someone who's trained? So that's a really cool story.
Right. And I'm partial to Texas, of course. Policing in Texas is they still let you be the police over here, more or less, compared to other states. And I really love it. We have it's just a beautiful vibe over here in Texas where they still really love their police. You know what I'm saying? Not the police. They love their police over here. And they do. They show us love here. We have the little few that push back, but over here, it's still a a profession that is loved and respected, and they definitely want the best of the best. And so if there's another way that they can bring you on, they're going to do that. They gave me the opportunity, and I was happy for it. It saved a lot of time, that's for sure.
Oh, heck yeah.
And you can't go wrong with all those years of military, not just the policing, because policing is policing.
Right.
I could come to your state and police. I just have to learn your laws and your procedures and policies, right? But policing is policing, and what better candidate than somebody who's got the military, not only the military tactical training and the mindset. You're not just talking military, you're talking U.S. Marine Corps, right?
Yeah, baby.
You're talking the elite of the elite, right? And then have them come on board. If they can do this, if they can pass this, then we'll handle the rest out on the streets. That's the way it looked like to me. That's what Texas, in my opinion, was telling me. Like, hey, if you can do this, we'll bring you on and we'll teach you the ropes on this other end. And that's what happened. And I couldn't have picked a better state to come home and police on my civilian career.
That's great. I love it. That's so cool. Yeah, Texas is going to be its own country one day,
Oh,
yeah. If we keep going down the road we're going, Texas
we're certainly big enough.
I know, absolutely. No, that's really cool. I visited Austin, 8 or 9 years ago, and it was such a cool little city. And man, it's depressing watching the news because when I was there, it was clean city, and every little honky tonk had live music, and there was square dancing, and you just felt like everybody was having a good time. And now when I see clips on the news, when they show like Congress Street and all that, it looks like nothing I remember. It looks terrible.
It's changing. It's changing a lot, that's for sure. There's lots of parts of our beautiful state that's changing, but you have to be able to roll with the punches. Life changes, people change, politics change, policies change, and part of being a well-rounded cop, even human being, is to be able to adapt, improvise, overcome, right? That's what Marine Corps taught me. And adaptability is important, not just in life, but certainly in this profession.
Oh, absolutely. And I didn't mean to crap on Texas. That wasn't the point.
Not at all.
It just makes me feel bad because I liked Austin so much. And it almost wishes you wish there was like a little cut and paste, like can you just paste that up near San Francisco? And
you wouldn't be alone in that. There are people here in Texas that are like, I wish people would stop coming to our state and changing things around, right? Yep. It is what it is. I hate that saying even. My daughter's going to laugh when she hears me say that. It is what it is, because I can't – I cringe when people say that, but it's true to some degree. Like, you just have to be able to adapt and look at it from a different lens. And the lens that I choose to look at it is look at some of these other states and then feel happy to live where you live. So
absolutely. Yeah. I hear nothing but good things from people, cops that come on here that are from Texas. They fully love it still. And we actually stayed, when we drove cross country, we stayed in an Airbnb in Abilene, in like kind of the rural part. Man, it was pretty. It was really nice.
One of my dear friends is from Abilene.
Okay. Yeah, it's a lot bigger than I thought. There's a lot of people that live in Abilene. I didn't realize that. A good friend of mine I grew up with is living there now, and he said there's like I think there's a couple 100,000 people. It didn't feel like it, but there is.
That's one of the first things I hear a lot of people say. I thought Abilene was going to be small. It's not as small as people think.
No, not at all. So, Ann, can you take us way back to a young officer, Ann, on the job, and tell me the first time working as a cop, military or civilian, where you had like your first adrenaline dump, something really got your blood going?
I learned about the adrenaline dump as a little baby cub, a little baby pup in my Marine Corps police career. I can't say that I had ever really heard of an adrenaline dump before that. And like, you and I were joking earlier before we started rolling about how people, they don't tell you the stuff you really need to know. Like they hint at things, and we joke and laugh about things, but we don't really ever get into the meat and potato. I think we're doing better now as we're getting a lot more progressive, but back in the times when we were coming into our careers, it wasn't like that.
They just want to see how you reacted.
They're watching you because they know, this is the first time she's going to run and gun, and we're going to see her, basically her nervous system take a crap on her, and she's going to have this adrenaline dump. And I did, and I remember that the first time. I don't even remember the call so much as I remember the moment of it. I do very well on night shift. I always have. I guess by nature, I tend to be a night person more than anything.
Yep. My dad was like that. He did overnights forever. didn't bother him.
I don't really, were there nights where I was tired? Of course. But for the most part, I really didn't have trouble working through the night. And so I was like that, of course, as a newbie coming in. I was just bright-eyed and bushy-tailed all through the night. I think that's probably what they got such a kick out of, is because I was never really like snoozy on duty. And we ran somewhere, priority. I don't remember where and what it all consisted of. I know that we probably did a little hands-on, and that was about it. Nothing major. But at the time, for me, it was major.
Yeah.
And I remember getting in the car and getting very quiet. That's another thing nobody's ever accused me of being, is quiet. So I got quiet. I was not chatty, and then my partner starts giggling. My what you would call an FTO out here in the civilian police world. In the military, it's they didn't really call them FTOs or trainers or anything.
Just a boot getting broken in.
This is just your boot. You're a boot, and that's it. And everybody gets their dibs on trying to teach you something. And I'll never forget, he looks over at me and he starts giggling. And I kind of like look over. What are you laughing at? Yeah. It was my first experience with it. He starts laughing. He's like, "You're sleepy, right?" I was like, I can't keep my eyes awake. I was like, I don't know what happened. I felt a little nauseous.
Yeah.
I was trembly, and I didn't understand it. And it was the first time I heard somebody say, "Ha, you're having a dump." So we stop off to get something to drink, and of course all the guys come over, and they're just taking their turns, poking fun at me for having this adrenaline dump. The experience of it, like how incredibly lethargic that I felt. It was, I couldn't control my eyelids, is what it felt like. I couldn't control the trembling that was still present in my fingertips and in my legs. And I didn't want to speak of it. But once we had that moment of everybody crowding around and taking jabs at me, if you will, learning that this is what happens. It's called an adrenaline dump. It happens when your adrenaline spikes up and you run hot going somewhere or doing something. And then the fog of it clears and you come back down. You're supposed to come back down to rest and digest, right? This state of homeostasis, what I like to call the namaste, right?
Right.
And it didn't happen for me right away.
Yeah, the early ones usually don't. They kind of, it's like burning your body's on nitro. So you're burning this fuel that's like your body's like, geez, where do I put this? So your major muscle groups get jumpy and you get your hands are shaking. And I think I think it's why cops die younger, unfortunately.
Oh, well, I would agree. Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up too, because one of the things that I wished that I would have had more of, and you and I, again, just talked about this, is, okay, let's joke about it. Let's laugh about it. It's a rite of passage for them, right? They get to make fun of the new boot.
Right.
And
eventually someone laughed at them, they're going to laugh at you.
I made fun of the new boots later on in my career, right? But at the end of the day, I wish that we would have taken it a little farther and said, okay, you're having this adrenaline dump. But this is why you're having it. I don't think maybe they even really knew. There was no time for all that back then. It's like, don't worry, it'll pass. It happens. It's normal. You'll be all right.
Yeah.
And then going home thinking, well, I'm going to fall right to sleep. But you still have that residual juju from the adrenaline that's pulsating through your body, and you have trouble going to sleep. So none of that I understood. And in fact, it would be decades later before I ever really started to do the investigation, if you will, into what goes on in the body when you're having those adrenaline dumps.
And it's so helpful to know. Isn't it so helpful to know that this isn't unique? You're not going through something people haven't gone through. This is your body's normal reaction, and you're going to grow some calluses, and either you adapt to it or you just won't do it anymore. You won't do the job.
Right.
But
it'll physically make you ill. You will have, medical issues. You have to be able to adapt to it. And I think for me back then, that young, because I was 18 years old when I joined the Marine Corps. I'm not anywhere near
just
18.
A baby.
I'm not. I was a baby girl. I'm not anywhere near 18 now, right? And it's funny because I'm 49 as we sit here. I'm 49 years old. At 18 years old, these things happened, these experiences, these introductions, if you will, to adrenaline. At least it was the first time somebody was bringing my attention to it. It's not something I noticed before. But it would be not until I was 40 plus that I would start to really, truly learn about the effects of this on my body, on my overall wellness.
Yeah.
And my gosh, all those years in between of going like this, right?
Yeah,
with
the ebb and flow.
your cortisol levels and your fight responses and your fear responses and what that could do to somebody's, system, to their body. I wish I would have known and had that information back then, but I didn't. I had to find it on my own. Nowadays, they're starting to give that information a little bit more.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the advent of all the mental health issues in public are actually, it's a terrible thing, but it's actually helping police because they're recognizing mental health in everybody now. Like they're looking at these professions. And I think that, people don't get it. Like, because when a normal person has a fight or flight response, those are the things they do. Either you're going to fight somebody or you're going to get out of there. There's a shooting, whatever, you're out of there. A cop has to show up, internalize that, and also think. And fight or flight doesn't allow thought unless you can control it. You go to the core of your brain operates, and hopefully your training and experience. It's cliche to say, but that's really why they drive in the military and the police. They drive basic things into you, so they're there when everything falls away, and you're operating on your monkey brain. You can rely on that training. Your body almost just does it. You know what I mean? People don't get that until you do it. And then you're like, oh my gosh, this is corrupt.
I think who I think has a better grasp of that than probably the average bear is our competitive fighters.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And this is because I do come from a competitive fight background. You have to.
Yeah.
Or you're not going to win. You're not going to win, right? Competitive fighters, you've got your martial artists, your MMA fighters, your boxers, anybody who's ever competed, even you look at football, like it's contact, it's combat, right? Athletes who have had to navigate that journey will understand it. You have to rely on your ability to utilize critical thinking under massive, copious amounts of stress, under pain, under attack. Look at the boxer.
The fight goes on and on. It's not like just a scrap and then they pull you apart. Right. It's like a long tactical thing.
Right. How successful would I have been able to be in my fight career if I just caved to the adrenaline, if I just caved to the stress response and the effects, of stress on the body and the physical pain? There's no way. You have to learn how to fight through that. You have to learn how to maintain that mental focus. I do my best work in my personal life and in professionally. I do my best work under that level of stress. I get laser focus in that situation. And I think it has a lot to do with my childhood, with my career as a military, trained Marine, from my fight career. And I think I just took all of that into my police career, and it's done nothing but serve me. Yeah. I was really blown away by how much of that I drew upon, particularly in my 2 officer-involved shootings.
I bet. Yeah, it's funny you say that because it made me think back to times I've been in fights and as a cop, and then just scraps as a college kid or whatever. And I never got to a point in a fight where I was being tactical. It was always 75% afraid, 25% angry, and then you just hope you win so you're not embarrassed. You know what I mean? That was
right. But that's raw, right?
That's raw. Yeah. And they don't street fights don't last. It's not like it's either you get knocked down or knocked out, and hopefully nowadays they don't stop. They will stomp your head. But it used to be even when I was in late 90s, early 2000s, once the guy was down, it was done. And people would pull you apart and say, don't, he's done. Right. Don't beat an unconscious person. You know what I mean?
It's not like that now.
No, it's scary. It's even scarier now. But when I was in California, there was a bunch of boxing gyms, and I thought, what a good way to test your mettle a little bit, to see, get into that a little bit, and kind of, that's one area of my life where I've lived all over and traveled and done a lot of different things, and I've pushed myself. But that's one area I haven't, is the fighting arena. You know what I mean? And now I'm 43, so I feel like I'm kind of old.
No, don't say that.
Beating me
Although
up.
I understand that. You feel that a lot longer than you did, say, when you were in your 20s, right?
Well, I have to tell the podcasters, Ann doesn't have a single wrinkle on her face, And if you told me you were 25, I'd be like, yes. So I know they say black don't crack, but Latino don't crack either, or Latina, because
my ex-husband's black, and I was just having this conversation with my daughter yesterday, because my daughter obviously is biracial, and I call her my little Blexican, and I said, you got great genes, like you got you got your daddy's genes, you got your mama's genes, you're gonna be just fine. We were talking about that yesterday.
Don't take that melanin for granted, folks, because I am a redhead and I've got nothing. I can't go in the sun. My wife is half Portuguese, so my daughter has a lot of European in her, but she has the Portuguese genes too. So she actually gets like browner, and it's like I'm like, thank goodness you got it. You know what I mean?
And you with your ginger complexion.
I got the big hat on. You know, when I was at LAPD backgrounds, probably 2/3 of the guys I worked with there were Latino guys, and great group of guys, and ball busters, of course. And, you know, we'd go to the taco truck and they'd be like, oh, don't forget to invite Ginger Man. Oh, do we need his parasol? Is he going to be okay? It was like I was constantly, you know, they had to protect me from the sun, you know. And my two sons are like, you know, my middle child he's like powder. You know, I'm like, oh, man, sorry,
like
buddy.
Dad.
Yeah, you got it, buddy.
Well, thank you for that compliment. I will take it. I am I'm happy to grow older. I am. But, you know, I don't want to look like I haven't slept in 10 years, you know what I mean? Right. So I'm thankful for my mama's good genes, my daddy's good genes, and I'll take it. Yeah. I will take the win on that one.
You look great. I'm not just blowing smoke. And, you know, I got good advice years ago from a buddy of mine was dating a girl, and her dad was older than us, obviously, and he looked like younger. And the first thing he told us over a few drinks was, don't be ridiculous, moisturize your face. Because some woman had told him that years ago, and because men don't do that stuff. You know what I mean? Nope. We just get out of the shower dry and like.
I have got to tell you, if there's one thing my mother always harped on with me, it was, you know, keeping my skin clean. Yeah. You know, don't sleep in your makeup. It's nasty. It's going to ruin your skin. You know, I didn't always listen because I, like many young girls, was, you know, lathering myself, especially in the 80s, lathering myself up with baby oil.
I remember my sister doing that. I'm like, you're going to fry.
To lay out and get that gorgeous glow of, you know, in my skin. Yeah. I used to do that, which isn't great for your skin, right? Not even a little bit. But I used to do that. But thank God, you know, I've always maintained and been very disciplined when it comes to skincare. So I don't know, skincare, good genes, call it what you want. But like I said, I'll take it.
Yeah,
I'll take the compliment. Thank you.
So I just wish I could grow a beard above my eyes.
Hard to believe I got shot there, right in the face.
No, it is unbelievable. You wouldn't even be able to tell.
Nope.
It's
very minimal.
Crazy.
Very minimal.
And
that's good surgeon.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get to that one, and obviously want to hear all about it, can you tell us about a strange or bizarre thing you dealt with on the job?
There's a lot.
I bet.
There's a lot. Oh, gosh. And I know you get this reaction from the cops. They're like, what? Strange and bizarre? Let me flip through my Rolodex of what's strange and bizarre.
And you're going to think of a different one after this and be like, oh, I should have done that one.
I wish I would have said that. I know. You know, I have to say one of the most bizarre things to ever happen to me, where I remember it's a very clear thought of my brain struggling to make sense of what I was looking at, was coming upon a man who was in a back alley of a business, who was squatting down. He was nude and he was eating his own fecal matter.
Oh my gosh.
And he was grunting. It was just my brain could not. For a minute, it was like a stutter step. Like when Fred and Barney hop in Fred Flintstone's little car, and he wants you see the little feet pitter patter, and the car doesn't move until a little bit later. That's what my brain felt like it was doing as it was trying to.
That's a horrible thing you just put my mind
this.
in.
It was, you know, it was a beautiful night, and I'm walking, just trying to get out of the car, stretch my legs, and get some air, and just be productive while I'm doing that, and just walking some buildings, and there he was back there, and I will tell you that, you know, I didn't expect to see anyone back there. But we're kind of used to that too, right? That might startle you, but you process it fairly quickly, especially a seasoned officer, because you see things you don't expect to see. People jump out of corners and whatnot. But this was so different. He wasn't jumping out of anywhere. In fact, seemed to be unfazed that I was there behind him. I was walking, and my night eyes are really good, or even better probably back then. And I'm looking down. I see something down there in the shadows, and I could hear the it's like, gosh. What's that, right? And I just went I just click put the little light up there, click,
instantly regret it.
And he's squatting, like he's, I don't even know how to look, like he's squatting almost like he's squatting over a toilet bowl to take a dump, right? But he's squatting there, and he's nude, and his hair is all matted out, ratted up, and he looked feral. You know what I mean?
Like a feral human.
And yes, and I saw it, and I'm looking, and he went, and he turned around and looked right at me.
Oh, like a zombie.
And it was the weirdest. I remember going, "Hey, hi," or something like that.
Right. What do you say?
Trying to, because my brain is like, stay calm. You talked about that monkey brain. Well, that's what happens when you start to work off of emotion, right?
Right.
Fear, anger, things like that. And I just looked at him like it was normal. I was like, "Hey, how's it going?" Like he was supposed to be there. And I started to back out. Just back out.
Yeah.
Just backed out.
Carry on.
And carry on. I'm not. You go ahead. Enjoy your dinner. I'm not. Who am I to intrude? Who am I to intrude? No, sir.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hell no. Hell
Very
no.
bizarre.
Yeah.
Very, very, very bizarre situation.
That's
scary.
crazy.
I don't scare very easily. Never really have. My dad, he gets his pleasure from scaring us, and I get pleasure out of scaring people.
That's a dad thing, because I get the pleasure of scaring my kids.
Yeah. I love it. But I don't, Daddy could scare me, but I don't scare very easily. And that scared me.
Yeah.
That was weird.
That is really weird. So any call I've had that deals with poop, I'm like, if I can get out, I'm out. We recently had a call like that. Fell down, drunk, pants fell down, pooped all over himself, rolled in it, trying to get up. Now it's all over his hands, and like sees the cops, like, hey, and you're just like, whoa, don't even. I wash this uniform once a month, whether it needs it or not. Don't touch me. And he's just getting poop all over everything, his own car, and it's like now it's like, well, we own this guy. We own this guy because he's like out in public. He's right next to a highway. And
he is your baby.
Yeah, people don't think about those calls. It's like, this is not a criminal matter, but this guy's our responsibility now, and it sucks.
I used to carry trash bags in my police bag in my trunk. Just the big old to
suffocate them to death, or
no. You said it, Steve, not me. What I used to wear, the big trash bags that for your yard work, where you throw
big black ones.
Okay,
yep.
Right, the big black ones. So I would just make like a little hole over the top and put it over them like a little poncho. That's a
good call. See, I work in the country though, so like when I coming across someone like that for me is so rare that I never even think. If you work in a populated area,
crafty.
A poop poncho.
I used to carry, for especially drunk people, as they piss on themselves all over your car in the back, or if they're vomiting, you just want to try to keep it and contain it as much as possible. I would carry dog leashes and stuff. Like when you're working in the city and you're seeing things like fairly regularly, you get really crafty. I carried, tampons. And not necessarily for what one might think. That was back before I had tactical critical care training, where I thought stuffing a tampon into a wound was the best way to go, and it's actually not. It's actually not. We want to stop the bleeding, not absorb it.
Right.
So, yeah. But anyway, all those little crazy things I used to carry. But yeah, that was beyond trash bag stuff. I just left him to it.
Here's a question for you. Yeah, I don't blame you. What would you... When you had a court situation, I don't know if you brought prisoners to court or not, or if somebody else did that in your agency, but Have you ever had a judge be like insist that they be like properly clothed, but they don't have clothes? Did you guys have extra clothes for that? Because we had a few times when someone was like in their underpants, because that's how they were captured. And it's
my gosh.
We started to have like, and you can't get a hold of a family member. You're like, hey, can you bring the kid some clothes or whatever? And it's like, the judge is like, hey, he's got to have something on. And it's like, I think we ended up, the court might have Johnny's or something. But I always thought that was funny when they're going in the cruiser and it's like, what do you want us to do?
We didn't have the extra clothes to speak of. We didn't have that. I'm taking a little picture of you and me. Smile. Okay, good. We didn't have the clothes to speak of, but we did have to go to court, of course. But we didn't have. I've never been in a situation in court where we were responsible to get them clothed or anything like that. No, not us.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I've always worked for smaller agencies, so we're kind of like the multiple hats type of deal.
Right. Yeah.
And I want to talk about the shooting event now. And I have to tell you, I did some research on you and I watched some video, and it is, if you haven't seen the video of it, you should watch it, but it's remarkable how you spoke on the radio, because I don't know, it sounded like it was like you were about to pull over a speeder. You know what I mean? It was like you were very composed on the radio. Can you take us through that stop and the events that happened afterwards?
So I don't know if you know this. There's actually two shootings. There was a shooting that I had the October of the year prior.
Oh, really? Okay.
And then there was the shooting that happened October of 2013, which you're referring to. And the reason I bring that up is because while I tend to, for me, it's my natural way. I tend to stay pretty calm when the poop flies. Yep. That's my nature. But some of the radio traffic and some of the ways that the communications, verbal transmissions went down, not necessarily over the radio that anyone was cursing, but just in general where body mic is picking this up. When it went to the grand jury, I remember that was like an issue for people. People were talking about the cursing. And not that I didn't drop any curse words during that situation. Just to give you some background, my arm was pinned in a car window and I was dragged down the street by a suspect. Wow. Then I was thrown from the vehicle, and I utilized my firearm to obviously stop this threat, and he was shot through the windshield of his vehicle in the face. Now, obviously, you can imagine this situation is chaotic for everyone involved, right?
Yeah.
But I remember that when it went to the grand jury, there was like, it was no build. It was justified, but there was a civil trial because the suspect's family, they sued me for excessive force. It went nowhere. It ended up going nowhere, but he did do it. And I remember throughout that process, this was a thing. Like the cursing came up a couple times. More than a couple of times.
They're not human beings.
Right.
Mind your language.
Like, you were cursing. Right. And I mean, I wasn't the only one that was on scene. There was a couple of us. It was just me and my partner of mine. And so she's cursing. I cursed. He cursed. But I remember feeling not proud of that. Like I felt like it was ridiculous to even, why are we talking about it?
Right.
But I do remember I didn't like it. I didn't like the way it sounded, even when I heard it.
I get it.
Which is crazy.
Yep.
And so anybody who knows me knows I have a potty mouth. I do. But I don't like cursing to come over my police work where other people hear me talking like that. I don't like that. And I don't like to wear clothes that have cursing on them or bumper stickers. Like, for as potty mouth as I am, those are the two things I don't like.
Okay.
I don't like it to
I'm with you.
Creep into my police work, and I don't wear it on clothing where everybody can just see it. That I don't like. So I remember when the second shooting is going down, I had a lot going on, but I remember having a very cognizant thought of, do not curse.
Wow.
Just do not curse.
That's crazy to me.
Yes, it is crazy. I think of it now and I think it's crazy, but it's one of the, there's a million things going through your mind when something like that happens. And that really was one of them, is like, just watch your mouth, because I can tell you that internally I was going bananas.
I bet. It's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you took 2 rounds, right?
Right.
Right. And you were
face and chest.
What were you pulling him over for? What was the stop for?
So there were some minor traffic infractions there to justify a traffic stop, traffic violations. But my stop, while I was stopping I always say it's more from an investigatory standpoint. That's the contact I was making at this point, because this suspect's vehicle sat at the stoplight that had cycled green to red a couple of times and never moved.
Oh.
So I caught eyeballs on that from way farther south of them on a long stretch of road at that time of the morning, 3:30 or so in the morning. There's not a lot of traffic out, so you can see all the way down the way to the stoplight, right? So I'm watching this, and that's what got my attention, is why is this car sitting there? What initially caught my attention is something very tiny. The left blinker was on, and the car facing south, coming from the north side of this road, facing south, the car was not in the left turning lane. It was actually in the fast lane facing southbound at the red light. So I figured, as I'm watching this car, before it even sat through the 2 go cycles of the traffic light, I thought, well, maybe he's going to turn left from the wrong lane, and then I can just make a contact, and see what's going on there. But then the cycling of the lights happen, and he's still not moving. So, of course, like any seasoned officer, you're going to start to go through the list of what you could potentially be dealing with. Drunk guy passed out at the light, vehicle trouble, medical emergency, all of which would constitute a contact. You need to check to see what's going on. So that's what it was. For me, it was more from an investigatory position, but also there were some traffic violations, cars that had to go around because he's now impeding traffic. He's sitting there at a green light. He's not moving. So there's a lot going on there. But for me, it was more of, what are you up to?
Right.
Do you need my help? Are you having a medical emergency?
Yeah, it could be a community caretaker thing. Who knows?
Yes, you never know. And it has happened where you see things like that happen, and somebody's literally, in the middle of a panic attack, or they've passed out, or they're in a diabetic coma. You just never know.
Right.
And for that reason, you should always, initiate that contact and check. And that's what I did.
Okay, so you stopped him and he pulled right over? No, he did.
No,
right, initially?
they actually he rolled slow. We call it slow rolling over here. I don't know what y'all call it, but he kind of slow rolled past a couple of areas where he could have stopped. And again, from an officer who's been out there for a while, doing it for a while, I know that a lot of times people at night, they don't want to stop in dark areas. So I figured, okay, let me give him a little time to find a well-lit area to pull over.
Because people are told now it's okay to find a safe area, and then they'll just keep going and going, and you're like, well.
Right. You don't get to try to make it home because you're drunk and you think, I live right there.
That's safe.
If I could just make it right there, I'm safe.
Right.
Yeah, you've probably seen it. They get out of the car like, I live right here, but I live right here.
I made it.
No, it doesn't work that way, buddy. But, so I'm thinking of what it could be, or maybe he is having some car trouble and he's just trying to make it because he knows if he stops, he's not going to start again. And he doesn't have the money to pay for a tow. So there's a lot of things that you're cycling through, and utilizing all of the tools of pre-attack indicators and the way they're driving and just anything. Your brain is doing what it's supposed to do. It's taking in the information through the eyeballs, and it's processing that information. And then, of course, it's going to do what it's going to create levels of priority for information.
Sure. And
so that's where I was at for the little while that they passed through, some well-lit areas. Now when they're passing well-lit areas, I can toss that one out.
Right.
The well-lit area is no longer a possibility. So you're using the process of elimination all the while you're communicating with dispatch, you're driving, you're watching. I don't think most people know and understand everything that is going on in the car with a cop when they're doing something as basic as they call it as a routine traffic stop.
Right.
What?
I know.
Because we see how routine my traffic stop went, right?
Yeah.
On Florida's Space Coast, we think you can have the best of both worlds. Kind of like right now. Driving, at your desk, maybe at the gym, but you're also grooving to some music. Visit us and you'll go to the beach and see a rocket launch. Or go kayaking and manatee spotting. It's all waiting for you on the only beach that doubles as a launch pad. Plan your adventure today at visitspacecoast.com.
What happened, Coach?
You got beamed by a fastball. How many fingers am I holding up?
25?
25? Uh-oh.
25? Did you know you can save up to 25% off grocery store prices at BJ's Wholesale Club?
Good call, Ump. I'll save a ton on my Memorial Day cookout.
BJ's deals on patio furniture are a home run, too.
On your feet, son. Do you know where you are?
I'm at BJ's. Look at all the happy shoppers.
Save in-club or shop on BJs.com and pick up in-club or curbside. BJ's, absurdly simple savings.
So yeah, there was a lot going on there.
So when you made the approach, what was that like? What did he have to say?
The approach was a lot of, just a bunch of bullcorn. All of the red flags were popping up for me at this point. Now that I have made contact with the vehicle and the occupants in the vehicle, there's 3 men in this car. I'm talking to the driver. All of the signs are there, from, not answering the questions to the stuttering, the stammering, the excessive movement in order to create distractions for me to bring my attention off of whatever it is in the car that he doesn't want me to pay attention to, and focus on things like him waving his hands around, just animated like, and hanging his head out of the car, and just, all of the things that he's trying to do to distract me, because, he needs me to be distracted. He knows at this point that the front seat passenger and the rear seat passenger are both armed, as well as he's armed, and that he's instructed them. I don't know this at the time, but he knows this. He knows that he has instructed them that whoever has the first shot at the officers is going to take it. And so this is what he's waiting to happen, which ultimately does happen.
And was it the passenger in the front seat that took the first shot? Did you do all the shooting?
Correct. The front seat passenger whips around in that front seat passenger seat and comes through into the back seat. If you guys are trying to get a visual on this, just imagine, for those of us with kids, and if you don't have kids, you've been a kid and you've probably had to get your ass beat from the front seat to the back seat. But imagine it's the mama turning around in the seat, coming into that back seat to whip you up because you don't know how to act. That's kind of what he did. He whipped around, he comes ends up in the back seat, and it's all very quick. You guys remember when you were a kid, 1 minute you're smacking your brother or sister to the left or the right, and the next minute mom or dad's in the back seat with you, and you're like, whoa, where'd you come from? That's how fast it was. And he was back there with his firearm pointed out that rear passenger window, the passenger window that's obviously behind the driver. That's where I'm standing, and shot me with the first bullet that hits me, which was here to the left cheekbone. Wow, that's unreal. So that when he's making that movement, it's got to be kind of you kind of like don't. Even though you have all these red flags, it's got to be kind of surreal that like this person's reaching over there to shoot me. You must think like, because you've never been shot at before like that. When he made that movement, were you like, danger, danger, or were you like, what did you think? So I don't remember it. I can only describe it to you in the way that I did using that analogy, because I know that he was there, right, and he was in the front seat, but I don't. My brain has absolutely no memory of the moment he decided to whip around, come into the backseat area, pull that firearm up, raise it up to my face. I don't remember any of that. None of that is there. It's not in my brain. It's gone. I have no memory of it. The same as when I reached my arm in the window during that first shooting. The suspect is focused on my partner, and they're going back and forth, and he's not focused on me. I know that his focus is over here. I know that the locking mechanism is really close to where I'm standing on that window, and the window is literally up only yay far. So it's not like it's, so I have more than enough time, my brain's telling me, to pop the lock. And if he goes to raise the window, I still have time to pull it out because he has to notice me first. And then there's still the process of the window having to go up, whether you're using a button to push the window to go up or you're manually raising it, it's still a process. And I knew that I could beat him out, pulling my hand out, but it didn't happen like that. My brain has no memory of that process.
It's incredible what the brain
of the
does.
in-between.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It does. It's a coping mechanism. It's protecting itself is what it's doing. And that's what happened with the shooting.
All right. Well, I don't want to make you dig too deep for that memory because it's probably right where it needs to be. What kind of handgun did he use? Was it a handgun?
Yes. The front seat passenger shot at me with a 9mm.
Wow.
And the rear seat passenger had a .45 caliber that he was shooting.
Goodness.
And I was shooting a .40 caliber because my 9mm Glock, I'm a Glock girl all the way.
Yeah, Glock
my
man.
9mm. Yeah, you're a Glock man. My 9mm. Well, there you go. Hey, sponsorship, Glock.
Yeah, I know. I wrote to him once. It didn't go anywhere.
No. Well, my 9mm was in evidence because that first shooting had happened. So the first shooting happened October 14th, 2012. The second one was October 26th, 2013.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah. Isn't it, though? I know.
And the fact that you shot someone in the face and then you got shot in the face is like the chances of like being in a shooting like that are crazy. And then those two body areas are crazy. And the fact that I thought you were going to tell me it was like a 22, but these were bona fide handgun rounds. So the .45, did it hit you in the vest or did it hit you in the neck?
So what I was told by the investigators, I remember vividly the difference in the face impact of the gunshot wound to the face and the impact of the gunshot wound to the breast. The second bullet, I don't know if you can see, it hits me here just to the left of my breast. Imagine I'm turning. Yeah. Because I just got shot in the so I'm turning and I raise my arm, to kind of protect my face.
Sure.
Boxing. Right. And I go to turn, and so the second round hits here. Now I'm wearing a custom cut vest, but this is still an area where the softest point of your vest is you're depending on what type of vest you're wearing, you're not even graded on some of this area here. So I imagine it's hitting me on the softest point of the vest. What the investigators told me, despite my objections, I was like, when I found out that the backseat passenger had a .45 caliber, I said, this was a .45 caliber. The one that hit me, I know was not the 9mm. I swore it. I would have bet my bottom breath of life that was the .45 that struck me in the chest. But the investigators said, no, it was the 9mm that hit you in both the face and the chest, because they were able to dig the slug out of the vest. So the vest actually held the round, even though the round penetrated and entered into my chest cavity. So I had a hole in my chest through my left breast.
Wow, that's intense, Ann. That is crazy. And you were, from the video that I saw, you were walking around talking. It even looked like it took them a while to get you to sit down. You were... Yeah, I was, I'm in the midst of my dump at this point, and I recognized it. If you watch that video, you can actually hear me say, because you'll hear me say once the backup starts to arrive, like, let's back out. I don't feel safe here. And the reason I was saying that was because as the suspects turned into that neighborhood area, they the driver used his signal light. I'll never forget that. I watched him use his signal light, and I said, oh, okay, mofo. You're baiting me. You want me to come in there because you're probably baiting me into an ambush. That's what that told me. Oh, so this is why I dropped back there, because I was still at the time by myself. People, they were coming. They just had to catch up. And I knew that
I knew in my gut they were baiting me. And so when he went back there, I'm in another city. I'm now in Houston. I don't know this area. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm not following you back there. I'm not going to die in some neighborhood in Houston because I didn't pay attention to, the pre-attack indicators. And so I stopped there. But by the time my partners got there, I was ready to turn it over. I needed to turn it over. But I told them, let's back out. I didn't feel safe because I wholeheartedly believed that they planned to ambush us coming in. So I wanted us to back out, and I wanted us to, kind of set up a perimeter as best we could in a neighborhood I didn't know, or we didn't know. And the cavalry starts to show up. So they start to do their work in taking over the scene. But as you'll hear me on that video, I'll say, okay, right. You'll see me turn my police car around to come out of there. And then you'll hear me go, okay, here's fine. I got to stop. And the reason I say I got to stop is because once I started to move that car again, after terminating the pursuit and standing by and waiting for backup, once I started to drive the car again, I noticed that I couldn't feel my legs. And I didn't have that problem the whole other part of the time when I'm in pursuit. I was very in tune with my body. I was very much engaged in what my body was feeling, doing, what I was dealing with in terms of the cognitive decline that you have when you're dealing with that kind of stress.
It's unbelievable. I can't believe you even got back in the car.
Oh yeah. Well, so I didn't just jump back in that car. There was a process. I did a whole entire self-assessment check on myself. It's just that I have done the same. So I had done the same self-assessment check on myself throughout my entire fight career.
Did you look in a mirror at your face?
I did when I got back into the patrol car.
Oh my God. I think I would have been like,
you gotta see, right? You gotta see. Cause I felt like my face was, just shattered and broken.
Did you feel like did you ever feel like you were going to die? Was that a fear? You felt like, okay.
So I obviously I knew that my life was really in jeopardy because they've shot me in the face.
Yeah.
Then the second shot, I'm like, holy cow, like they're trying to kill me here.
Yeah.
I knew that much. But did I have the fear that I was going to die? As soon as I did that self-assessment check of myself, I took all my fingers and I did this with my fingers. Both of them. And I did this with my tongue, which if you're listening and not, can't see me, I'm basically dragging my tongue across the top of my teeth and the bottom of my teeth. I wanted to make sure that my teeth were still intact so that I knew that at least my teeth weren't obstructing my airway and I could breathe. I also did this to ensure that my jaw was still intact. Because again, it just feels broken. My face felt like it just broke, the whole face.
Yeah, because you got to imagine all those foot-pounds of energy from 9mm, right. Your head absorbed. So there must have been tremors that just went all through your brain, everything.
Oh, gosh. My brain, probably the most debilitating part of that, it's extremely painful, but obviously I didn't let the pain, that didn't debilitate me, right? What was debilitating for me for a couple seconds there was the ringing in my ear. That ringing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
tinnitus
gosh.
from the gunshot.
Mm-hmm. That was so loud. It was so loud. It just kind of stopped my entire nervous system for a second. It felt like.
Yeah.
But I did look in the mirror. I did do that as self-assessment check. I did engage immediately my deep breathing. And look, this is all stuff again. I say this when I'm presenting all over the place. I say, look, I know there's a difference between taking bullets and taking punches, obviously. But the body's response to both of those things is not really that different.
That's incredible. I would have been like, take me to the hospital, you idiots. I've been shot.
Yeah. I totally knew after the self-assess that I was still in the fight. Wow. And I had a job to do. Let's just face it. These were dangerous guys.
Yeah.
I didn't even know this. I don't know if you know this, but these guys, at least the driver and the front passenger, they had killed a young man weeks prior to my contact during a botched armed robbery. And that very night, they ended up in the city of Stafford because they were coming off a robbery spree in Houston.
Wow. And were they captured that night?
Yes. Well, one of them was captured that night. The other two were outstanding for another week or so. And then we did a press conference. I was shot on the 26th. We did a press conference on Halloween. I'll never forget. And they were caught within about 24 hours of this press conference. Houston Crime Stoppers, they doubled the reward money from $5,000 to $10,000. And they were captured through tips.
Wow, that's great. I mean, we just had a guest on, Susan Welch Rodriguez. She was, I think, she's still doing it. She's part of the sheriff's posse. Again, why I love Texas. She's like pseudo-retired, but she's on the sheriff's posse riding horseback. She was in Houston or Dallas, actually. Dallas. It was such a
I was going to say,
such a
I
New
think
Englander.
that's Dallas. Right?
Yeah, Dallas.
Yeah.
But yeah, she was part of the Crime Stoppers follow-up team or whatever, and it's incredible work that they do to really get the information out. And that's an amazing story. So, I mean, clearly, did you just drive yourself to the hospital afterwards, or did the ambulance show up?
No. And can I just take a moment to kind of clear some things up too? And this really is important to me because you know how sometimes, the media, they just get it wrong. Right.
Sometimes,
I don't think always just a little bit. And I don't think with this, especially this reporting that they were doing on my incident, it was to be malicious. They just got it wrong. So a lot of media outlets reported that I was shot, more than twice, that I was shot in the leg, that I was shot up, that I chased them, and then I caught them and I wrangled these guys into handcuffs.
Oh, this is good reporting. I like this.
Like, no, I did not do that. So it's important to note that I did not do that.
That's part of the women's movement. They were like, we need to make this even more incredible.
Oh, hey, that's not specific to women. I'm not letting you have that one. You boys do some tall tale storytelling yourselves.
Oh, exclusively. Yeah, of course.
What is it? What do they grow an inch every time we tell a story? The guy gets an inch taller and 50
exactly.
pounds.
The fish.
Yeah. So no, I didn't do that. I as soon as, the cavalry showed up to that area, and you can see in the video, my partners will start to try to tend to me, and the people showing up are focusing on the scene. And they end up getting me into an ambulance. They chose to do a police escort to get me to the trauma center, which would have been easier and I guess quicker than trying to land a bird where we were at, a helicopter. So they did that, and it was really quick. Houston Police Department, there was all kinds of agencies there. Houston PD, DPS troopers were there. Missouri City Police, Stafford Police. They were there. Fort Bend County, I believe, was even there, but you had a ton of agencies there to help. And so those are the guys. That police work is what got these men and women who did all of this police work, what got me to the hospital so quickly, what is also what got these suspects caught in such a timely manner. That was a group effort from some people that I wasn't helping at the time. I was busy with, tending to the physical part, but they did that work to catch those guys, not me.
Incredible. And wow, I can't believe, I just can't believe that the way you persevered through that scene. It's really, I think it definitely has to do with your background as a Marine. And also it's really impressive to me that you did a self-assessment, because I've never really heard or spoke to somebody who's been shot that said they had were cognizant enough to actually do a self-assessment to see to kind of give themselves the confirmation that, okay, I am hurt, I'm injured, but I'm going to make it type of thing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's really cool. Where did you learn that?
I would have to say from my fight career and the Marine Corps. So the Marine Corps, it's funny because you say you've never heard anyone talk about that. And I've had people say that's bullshit. No way you did all that. Yes, way I did that.
Yeah, why wouldn't they
it's
believe
very
that?
natural. It was because, like you said, I've never heard of anyone doing that.
That's remarkable.
I've had cops who have been shot who know how chaotic it's super chaotic in those moments.
Yeah.
You know it. You can only imagine if you've never been through it how chaotic this must be. But people who've been in it will say, there's no way. Are you serious? You did all that? Yes, I did all that because for me, it was not unnatural. It was a very natural part of battle for me. Think about it. Think about it. The fight career, I have to be able to assess my injuries while in the midst of the fight.
Yeah,
because if my right hand is broken, I have to change strategy in my mind on the spot,
on the fly,
in the middle of the fight, on the fly. Yeah. You have to do this. You have to adjust. You have to change strategy. You have to be very aware that every time I do this with my right hand, I do this with my left hand, and it's leaving me open for his right hand. And it's creating a situation for me that I'm taking punches over here. You're constantly doing this. These fighters aren't just out there throwing wildly. It's very strategic. A lot of it is very natural and it's muscle memory, but most of it is very much a mental game. These fighters, this is why I love the fight game so much. It's honest. It's honest. You
can't fake
and that
your way
person.
Through that.
No. And so it's very natural for me to do that. It's also the military training in the Marine Corps, and I can only speak to the Marine Corps. Military police training was very much alike and very different in a lot of ways than civilian police training. In the Marine Corps, one of the parts of training that we have is, in civilian career, this is what you do so you don't get shot. This is where you stand so you don't get shot. Don't do that so you don't get shot, right? This is our training, right? That's good. We want to know what not to do so we don't get shot. But then it stops there. There isn't a whole lot of focus on mental training in the aftermath of getting shot. And the Marine Corps does it different. The Marine Corps does all of that. Don't stand here. Don't do that. Don't do that. So you don't get shot.
Mostly what I hear is make sure your union rep shows up and don't say anything.
That's very important. That's very important.
That's all they tell us.
Right? But in the Marine Corps, it's like, okay, now when you get shot, this is what you need to do.
Right.
To stay alive and to stay in the fight. To stay alive and to stay in the fight. Because in the Marine Corps world of training, you don't stop fighting until you don't have a pulse or you're literally unconscious.
Right.
That's just it. And so the whole thought process and mindset of staying in the fight is not a new concept to me when I come into civilian policing. I've been staying in the fight throughout my entire military career, throughout my entire fight career, and through my childhood, the way that I came up. All of those things, everybody has something.
Yeah.
Where they've stayed in the fight. It's just a matter of learning to make that transition and change the lens that you're looking at it through. If you can change that from, physically staying in the fight and then mentally staying in the fight, those are two very, very different aspects and components of staying in the fight. And I understood that because I had to. I didn't become a fight champion, because I didn't do those things. I became a fight champion with that ranking because I applied those mechanics to my mental resilience and my mental fight.
I love it. I mean, I'm really seeing why people come to see and listen to you talk, because it's fascinating, the things you're saying to me. I think that's very cool. Are you coming to New England anytime soon?
No, are you inviting me?
Show us a little love.
Yeah, are you inviting me?
How's the garden sound, Boston Garden?
I mean, I'll come wherever someone asks me to share the message. The message goes so much farther beyond, what happened to me on that night in October of 2013. This is I was put on this earth for what I'm doing now. And I have found such incredible amounts of purpose in what I'm doing. I believe I've said it once, I've said it a million times. No one would be shocked to hear me say it because I say it every single time. I am here and alive because of God's grace and his mercy to give me continued life.
Amen.
And because he had this job for me to do, and that's to share this message of finding that light, finding that power in the middle of pain and struggle. We all have been self-assessing. We just don't know it because we've never had anyone to stand in front of them and say, let me show you how you've been doing exactly what I did, what I'm doing, what I'm trying to tell you to do. You've been doing it all along to some degree because you're here.
Right.
Right? We've all got something that's put us down on our ass and made us feel like we couldn't make it through it. But here we are. So this isn't just a cop story. I think it's very important to people to understand this is a human being story. And the woman that people see in that uniform, in that video, getting shot that night, is not even the best part of me. The best part of me came many, many years later when I had to fight my way out of that battle that came in the aftermath of that incident.
Yeah, I bet. I hear that from a lot of people who survive police shootings. They're, that creeps up on you, and it's a whole nother battle you got to fight. And
absolutely.
I loved what you said about the boxing, because I am one of those people to some extent where they used to require in most academies there was boxing, and maybe they're doing jiu-jitsu now or whatever. I'm not sure it matters, but all those mechanisms you learn from mano y mano, it's just you and them, and it's all out there. It's all truthful. There's no hiding. I never thought about all the things you learned from that until what you just said. And it just moving on the fly, adaptation, perseverance, really knowing your body. Can I take a hit? What does it feel like? Is my bell going to be wrong? How do I recover from that? Can I go on? Because, I just from like the toughness side, when they started taking boxing and stuff away from some academies, I thought that's dumb. You should see what it feels like to get your head wrong. Can you take a hit? Or if you didn't play sports, maybe you should have a little contact with your body and somebody else's body to see. That's you
don't want the first time you ever get punched in your face and be on duty while you're at work.
Yeah.
That's because to be punched right in your face, that's a spiritual awakening.
But that's as deep as I went.
What you're made of.
Yeah, that's as deep as I took it. And I understood that part. But all the other things you said to me are fascinating, and I can see how valuable that is. That and I think it's just it's kind of I don't want to say red flag, but it's kind of an indication of the softening of our society, where they're like they really think they can put like like they're trying to do, like put social workers in the place of somebody with a cardigan and a clipboard is going to go to these violent mental health calls instead of the police. Or it's kind of like there's this utopian idea floating around that we don't need people like you that can really handle these situations or are prepared to. We can kind of do it with niceness and feelings and without the physicality. And you and I are both fully aware of the fallenness of mankind, of human nature. It's really hard to be a good person. It's really, none of us are really good. We're just trying not to be bad all the time. You know what I mean?
Right.
The depraved people out there, you're going to run into them like you did multiple times, unbelievably. And there's going to be no amount of nice talk or niceties or psychology that's going to get you out of it. You really need to have those survival skills that you've developed. And I'm just so happy you're talking about it. And like you said, I think it is God's plan for you this is your path. I think he's got a path for all of us, but clearly, I'm excited you're starting a podcast, because it's going to, you have a gift have a gift for gab. Like you, when you talk, it's very interesting, and you have a lot of insightful things to talk about, and you've lived them. And that's like a huge part for police to listen, and first responders and soldiers. We respond way better to somebody who's lived it. It's nice to hear theory and what you should do, but it's a whole nother thing to listen to somebody who's been through it and thought about it and has coped and fought those battles. So my hat's off to you, Ann.
Thank you.
I'm really excited. Do you have a name for your podcast yet?
Not yet.
Okay, I'm going to put it out there whenever you're ready.
Not yet.
We'll blast it out there. Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm one of those people, like, I don't want, from episode 1 to episode, 5,500, I want it to look as polished and professional.
Yeah.
I don't want to put out content that looks unpolished and unprofessional. So that's why I'm really taking my time to work on this project. It's something that I've wanted to do for a while. Smart. And I've considered partnering with people, and then, no, maybe I'll just do it on my own. But I think that the more I pray on it, the clearer it becomes to me, and it will give birth to itself when the time is right. And, God's timing is not always our timing. Right. But I know it will happen. And so I have a vision of the way I see it. And until I can get it to look this way, then I won't launch it.
Well, I told you, you can learn from all the 4 years of my mistakes.
Yes, I will pick your brain. I know it takes a lot of work. I don't expect it to just, take off overnight. But, really, that's not why I want to do it. I just
you want to reach the right people.
I want people to hear it, the right people to hear it. Like you said, there's been times where I've been speaking in front of, 17, 1,500, 1,200 people. There's times I've been in front of 700 people. And then there's times I've been in front of 70 people. And then there's been a time or two I've been in front of 7 people.
Sure.
Speaking. And people will say, oh gosh, is there like a minimum amount of officers that you'll come, like that you won't travel if it's less than this many? And I'm like, no, like if you want to book the training and bring me out, I'm going to show up, because I don't care if there's only 7 people or there's 7,000 people. The people who need to be there will be there. They'll be there, and they will be there in that moment because they're supposed to be. So that's kind of the way I feel with the podcast. Do I want it to be heard? Do I want, thousands of people to tune in and listen? Yes, of course. But if 7 do, I'm happy with 7. And I will keep doing it. And so hats off to you for, staying consistent, continuing to do this, despite maybe you're not seeing the numbers you want to see at this point, but the people who are meant to listen to you are listening. And eventually you're just going to see it just take it a life of its own. I have no doubt. It's a good podcast. You're doing good work here.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, I will keep, I'll keep at it. And, one thing I do is I look back. I'll go in my stats and I'll look back to 4 years ago. Then I look at now and I go, if you told me I was going to be here, even though I wish it was wildly more popular, if you told me I was going to be at like 45,000 downloads a month in 2018, I would have been like, no way. That's a dream of mine. You know what I mean? But now then when you get there, you're like, well, geez, it could be better.
I want more. I want more. Don't we just do that all the time? I want more.
I know.
It's funny because I don't, like I said, I don't work my social medias like I should. I would probably have a lot more of a following if I did that, but it's, you know what?
I love that because that's exactly how I feel about social media.
The right people are hearing us right now, and the right people are hearing that, wow, you mean I am doing the same thing you're doing? Yeah, to some degree you are. You are. Everybody has that. You just got to tap into it.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Well, when you get the name and you're ready to go, we're going to blast it up for you for sure. We'll put it everywhere we can. And we will
revisit.
Yes, absolutely. And we have 2 more questions. I know I've had you over an hour, but it's been really great.
Okay.
I don't want to keep you too long. Do you have a positive or heartwarming story from your career?
I absolutely do.
Great.
It's actually related to, and I have a lot of really great heartwarming stories, but this one really sticks out. So this is also related to the shooting. And for those of you who've ever heard me speak, and even just now on this podcast, you know that I'm a God-believing woman, and I'm a praying woman, and I pray a lot. I'm probably one of the most neediest people on earth. God's probably like, you again? So what my story is, the best heartwarming one is that, for a while after this happened to me and to my family, I struggled a bit with the why of it. Not, so much why did they shoot me? It was more of like, why did this happen? What am I supposed to do with it? What am I supposed to be doing with this, Lord? Because I feel like I'm screwing it all up, and I don't see, there's not a purpose. I'm just hurting, and my family is hurting, and I'm hurting the people I love, and I'm physically hurting, and I'm emotionally hurting, and I don't see the lesson in it. Why? So that why. And as I navigated along the journey, there were signs along the way that showed me, gave me the whys. And one of the most incredible ones was that I met the woman the mother of the young man that was killed by these suspects weeks prior to our contact.
Oh, okay.
And the reason that came to happen was because I decided to take a plea deal on one of the three guys. And the stipulation on the plea deal was, I'll take this plea deal, but you have to plead guilty to that murder in Harris County first, or no deal. So he did. He pled guilty to the homicide there and the murder of Carlos Sosa, and then he came over to Fort Bend County and took the plea deal that I agreed to. I was very blessed in having at the time a district attorney who gave me the choice. Gave me that
nice.
power.
Yeah.
So yeah, because that just never happens. And so when I went to hear him plea out on that case in Harris County, the prosecutor said, "Hey, the mother of Carlos Sosa would like to meet you." I hadn't given her, quite frankly, I hadn't given her that case much thought at all. I was going through my own stuff, right? But here's a beautiful story, and I'll keep it as short as I can without ruining, the beautiful message. Across town in Houston somewhere, weeks after her son was murdered, and she lost her child to gun violence, she sees on the news a woman on TV, all over the news, a woman officer who was shot and almost killed by these men. Undoubtedly, she was very raw in her emotion because she had just lost her own son to gun violence. So she starts to light all these candles for this woman who she doesn't even know. She just knows that this woman is a cop and was trying to protect the community, is a mother, is a wife, right? So she feels very connected deeply to this. And so she begins to light candles. She's Catholic, and she begins to light candles and pray and pray and pray just insistently for me. And awesome. I don't know her, and she doesn't know me. She has no idea that the men who shot this woman that she's watching on the news are the very men who killed her son. No idea. That is not known to her. That was not known to me. This was years down the line. So now her son's gone, and she's praying for this officer. And sometime down, her son's murderers are indicted on capital murder charges, but the case is very weak. Outside of the gun that they used to kill Carlos Sosa is the gun that one of the guns used to try to kill me. That's the only connection. There are no witnesses, and as well as I do, that's just not enough, right? So there was a very big chance that she might have never seen justice for the murder of her son. So when I accepted this plea deal, and the stipulation was that he had to plead guilty to that murder, she wanted to meet me. And I walked in there, and she looked up at me when I came in the room, and I'll never forget, and it still really brings a lump to my throat. I'm a big old sap as it is, but this brings a lump to my throat because when she looked at me, if I could describe to you the look on this woman's face, it was just the way she looked at me made me uncomfortable, because it was almost as if, because she was saying to me, tú eres un ángel. She was saying, you're an angel. You're an angel. You're my angel. When the connection was made that the very woman she was praying for this whole time would be the woman that would bring her son's killers to justice. Unreal. She was blown away. I didn't know the story that she'd been praying for me this whole time. She tells me this on the spot. She grabs my face. She's looking at me. She's crying. And she's saying, I've been praying for you. I've been praying for you. And she's telling me this whole story, and I am blown away by it. Needless to say, I was very moved, and as I'm leaving the courtroom that day, it hits me like a ton of bricks. This is why, for all of the moments that I ever cried wondering why, this is why. It was never for me. It was never about me. It was always about send me, the verse, right? Yeah. It was always that. God needed someone to go through this. And this is my belief. This is my personal belief, my own aha moments. God needed somebody, and he chose me to do this because he knew that in doing this, I would chase, and that we would eventually catch, and that we would get the killers of Carlos Sosa off the street, who had been robbing and victimizing people and God knows what else that we don't know about. And it was always about her. In that moment, that woman saying, thank you. You did that for me. Thank you. And so I've had moments of that, many more moments of those why moments along the journey, but that has to be my most feel-good story of hope, is that cops, guys, sisters, brothers, sisters, you may feel, why the hell am I doing this? Especially in the now.
Sure.
Why do I do this? Why do I do this, right? Just remember, you might not have had your why moment yet where you know why, where it was revealed to you what you've done. So keep fighting the good fight, because when it does get revealed to you, it's an indescribable feeling of hope, even for me. So that's my feel-good story of hope. Like you, I've probably helped hundreds and thousands of people and saved lives here and there, but you don't ever really get to have that moment of, here, look what you've done.
Yeah.
And I got to have that. So at least where this incident was concerned. So it was a beautiful moment. And it's the first thing that came to my mind when you asked me that question.
That's beautiful, Ann. Thank you for sharing that. That's a wonderful story. My goodness. The last question I have for you is a very popular one. A lot of emails about it. A lot of people who are, on the fence about police work or are going through the process, they're in backgrounds. They want advice. They want the guests that come on this show with all their experience to give them some pearls of wisdom on moving forward with being a police officer. So what advice would you have to the new officers or the candidates out there?
It's very easy for me. My advice would be, do not make your ultimate professional goal, we all go home. Okay, it's ingrained in you from the very beginning when you step foot into your blue career. We all go home. We all go home. While we all want to make it home, yes, it's very important. But if that is your ultimate goal, you will fail in the fight after the fight, just like I did. The fight that comes when you win on the street, when you make it home. You win. Think about it. You win every time you make it home. It is not enough to do that if you do not know how to process the shit you see once you're out there, the stuff you overcame to make it home. There's another fight that you will have to fight. And nobody ever told the likes of me or a lot of us veteran cops who've been in the game as long as we have, nobody ever told me that. So please be mindful that if you're making your ultimate professional goal, making it home, then you're doing yourself a disservice. You're doing your family a disservice. There is the potential for another fight to come your way. And if you're ill prepared because you don't know about it, because you haven't gotten the training, because you haven't sought out that training, then you're going to lose. And I will tell you that the fight after the fight is more vicious an opponent, more relentless an opponent than any that I've ever faced in my life. It was difficult, more difficult than any bullets I ever took, more difficult than any surgeries I ever had, more difficult than any fight I ever fought on the streets in the capacity of this job, or any fight I ever fought toward a championship in the ring. Toughest battle I ever fought was the fight after the fight. So my advice to you would be, don't sell yourself short. Be prepared for that. Be prepared by going out and looking for that training. And make sure that you have the foundation of how to win against that opponent. And if you don't, and you need some pointers on how to do that, I'm happy to help you. You just got to reach out. Beautiful.
I love it, Ann. Words of wisdom. Thank you so much for that. It has truly been an honor having you on the show. Thank you for setting aside the time. I have your Instagram up there. It's the Fight After the Fight on Instagram. Where else can people get a hold of you or reach you?
If they typed Officer Ann Carrizales in any search engine on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, you can find me. You can find me that way. My Facebook public page has a button that you can tap on, and you can instantly be routed to an email if you want to get a hold of me, whether that is for peer support, whether that is for training, whatever it is that you need to get a hold of me for, you can do that through any of those platforms, really. So I'm not hard to find. You just have to just go looking. I also have an email address, which is my name, Ann M. Carrizales@gmail.com or thefightafterthefight@gmail.com. You could get me on either one of those emails. So I'm not hard to find if you need to track me down for whatever reason. I always make myself available. It may be a little bit because I'm on a plane a lot. If it's not something that's super, I need to answer you right this minute, then those are great ways to get a hold of me utilizing social media and emails.
All right. I love it. And we'll be looking out for that podcast, so don't take too long.
Look out. Look out for the podcast. Look out for the virtual trainings. Look out for all the ways that I want to branch out to bring the message to you. And if you're following those social medias, you will have gotten wind of when that's going to be. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Absolutely. I'm going to do the outro here. It takes like a minute. Can you hang out for a second, or do you have to get going?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I can do it.
Okay. I'll be right with you. Ladies and gentlemen, the great Ann Carrizales. Oh, my goodness. So worth the wait having her on. Incredible story and just wisdom and great advice coming out through the whole interview, I think. I mean, it was really great. Maybe we will have to try to get her up to New England and enlighten these folks up here. Guys, today is the part of the show when I thank the Patreon sponsors, the Sergeants. Who I'm talking about is the great Sarah Pomeroy, Andy Biggs, Greg Gadboy, Adam Mihawk, the great Chris June, Gary Steiner, Jake Pinito, John Shoemaker, Lauren Stimson, the handsome Lane Campbell, Seth Wright, William James Long, that's Deputy William James Long to you, James Rose, the great Tony Fahey, Ben Peters, Braden Walker, Corey Payne, Jason Lau, the great Mike Wynn, Nathan Gowan, Sasha McNabb, the great Scott Minkler, Tammy Walsh, Sean Clifford, Dennis, because he just put one name, Motor Cop Chronicles, The Iceman, George Tessier, Nick New, Scott Young, the great Tom Connell, ladies and gentlemen, Wayne Miller, Burley Boards, that's Dan Carlson, Doug and Kelly Newman, Joe DeVries, Dave Ellman, the great Elliot Sykes, Holly Vanover, Richard Tolles, Brittany, the music restart screwed me up, Brittany Sibbs, Christian, doesn't want me to say his last name, and Jace Crow. Guys, thank you for the continued support. I can't thank you enough to the Patreon people. You helped me pay for the website, the software I use to record this, the what it costs to store the podcast up in the cloud. All those bills are completely and totally covered, and then some. And I truly appreciate it. I couldn't do it without you, so thank you for that. And guys, that will be it for this week, so we will catch you next time.
What happened, Coach?
You got beamed by a fastball. How many fingers am I holding up?
25?
25? Uh-oh.
25? Did you know you can save up to 25% off grocery store prices at BJ's Wholesale Club?
Good call, Ump. I'll save a ton on my Memorial Day cookout.
BJ's deals on patio furniture are a home run, too.
On your feet, son. Do you know where you are?
I'm at BJ's. Look at all the happy shoppers.
Save in-club or shop on BJs.com and pick up in-club or curbside. BJ's. Absurdly simple savings.